As Sarah strolled through the local park, the familiar sounds of classic rock played through her headphones, setting a perfect soundtrack for a carefree afternoon. A gentle breeze added to the tranquility she was enjoying after wrapping up a particularly challenging coding sprint for an app she had been developing. Working remotely had its perks, like the luxury of staying in pajamas well into the afternoon, free from any judgment. However, as she neared a bend by an ancient oak tree, her peaceful moment was abruptly interrupted. She crashed into someone who felt as solid as a brick wall. Her phone flew from her hand, and her headphones were ripped from her ears. Sarah gasped in surprise, her reaction mirrored by the stranger. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, quickly scrambling to her feet and brushing off her jeans. The brick wall turned out to be a young man, probably around her age, with tousled brown hair and a sheepish smile. He had already picked up her phone and was inspecting it for damage. "No worries, just keep an eye out next time you're lost in the music," he teased, handing her back her phone, thankfully undamaged. "Thanks, and you're right, I was totally lost in the music. I'm Sarah," she introduced herself, still slightly flustered but appreciative of his relaxed attitude. "I'm Ethan," he said, his gaze flicking to her phone. "Looks like you've got great taste in music." They shared a laugh, and Sarah noticed a frisbee in his hand. "Do you play?" she asked, pointing at it. "Yeah, I was about to play with my friends Liam, Noah, and Caleb, but they bailed. Want to join me?" Ethan offered. "Not really, but I'm open to trying something new," Sarah replied with a shrug. She had no other plans, and he seemed like good company. "Great, I'll teach you," Ethan grinned, his enthusiasm sparking her curiosity. The next hour flew by as they tossed the frisbee back and forth, chatting about everything from their favorite bands to their careers. It turned out that Ethan was an engineer at a local tech startup, so they had a lot to discuss, both being involved in the tech industry. The conversation flowed easily, like catching up with an old friend. As the sun began to set, Ethan glanced at his watch. "Hungry? I was planning to grab a bite at the cafe across the street. Want to join me?" Sarah realized she was quite famished. "Sure, let's go." "But if they have chili fries, I'm not sharing," she warned with a playful grin. "Ha! Challenge accepted. Let's see if their chili fries live up to the hype," Ethan laughed as they headed for the cafe. By the time they parted ways, it was clear that this wasn't a one-time meeting. Ethan asked for her number, and Sarah happily gave it to him, feeling a flutter of excitement, knowing this could be the start of something special. Several months into their relationship, things with Ethan were going wonderfully. But as with any story that seems too perfect, there was a shadow looming. That shadow was Agnes, Ethan's mother. "So, you're finally going to meet my mom," Ethan said one Saturday morning over breakfast, his tone a mix of amusement and mild caution. "Just so you know, she can be pretty intense," he warned. "Oh, like secret government conspiracy intense, or more like she believes in aliens?" Sarah joked, trying to keep the mood light. "More like she reads your horoscope and judges your life choices based on it," he replied with a shake of his head, preparing her for what promised to be an interesting encounter. Later that day, Sarah and Ethan made their way to his mother, Agnes's place, which looked like it had jumped right out of a glossy TV show with its impeccable landscaping and an air of eerie perfection. Ethan knocked, and almost immediately, the door swung open to reveal Agnes. She stood there in a vibrant floral dress that seemed to declare her dominance over the household. "Ethan, and you must be Sarah," Agnes said, sizing her up as if she were an exhibit in her personal museum. Come in, come in." Stepping inside, Sarah felt like she had been transported back to the 1960s. The living room was a shrine to that era's decor, complete with a massive bookshelf brimming with astrology books and, believe it or not, a crystal ball perched on the coffee table. Without wasting a moment, Agnes turned to her, her curiosity barely contained. "So, Sarah, when's your birthday?" she inquired the moment they settled onto her vintage floral couch. "April 19th, Sarah replied, slightly thrown off by her abrupt dive into astrology. "Aries, huh?" Hmm, she murmured, brow furrowed as she consulted one of her many books. And Ethan here is a Pisces. Not the best match astrologically speaking, you do know that, right? Ethan rolled his eyes at her, an apologetic look on his face. Mom, come on, not everyone believes in that stuff. But they should, especially when it comes to important life decisions. Agnes countered sharply, giving her a piercing look. You see, Sarah, Aries are headstrong and impulsive, and Pisces are dreamers, sensitive. It can lead to conflicts, you know. Sarah wasn't sure how to react to being analyzed like a character in her astrological play, just minutes after meeting her. Well, we've been getting along just fine so far, Sarah said, trying to keep the peace but also standing her ground. Agnes hummed disapprovingly, her fingers drumming on her astrology book. We'll see about that. Life's not just about the good times, dear. The rest of the visit was just as awkward. Agnes kept talking about ensuring compatibility and the dangers of retrogrades. It was almost surreal hearing all that came out of her. Ethan was extremely apologetic as they drove home. Sorry about that. She can be a bit much, he confessed, clearly embarrassed. A bit much, Ethan? She basically suggested we're doomed because I'm an Aries, Sarah half joked, trying to lighten the mood, though she was a bit stung by the whole ordeal. Driving back, Sarah pondered over everything. Agnes was definitely formidable, but she was not about to let her or her astrological chart steer her relationship. She liked Ethan, and no cosmic misalignment was going to deter her. Fast forward a year, and despite all the astrological hurdles Agnes tried to place in their path, Ethan proposed. They were at their favorite pizza place when he nervously slid the ring box across the table. Sarah, will you marry me? He blurted out, almost spilling his drink. Sarah was so surprised that she nearly choked on her pizza slice. Hell yes! She exclaimed after regaining her composure. The restaurant erupted in applause, and there Sarah was, laugh-crying, overwhelmed by the moment. Planning the wedding, however, was far from simple. Between drafting a guest list and selecting a venue, Agnes's incessant commentary was the last thing they needed. You know, Sarah, Mars is in retrograde around your wedding date. That's not a good sign, she cautioned one afternoon as they reviewed floral arrangements at her place. Sarah rolled her eyes so hard they nearly got stuck. Agnes's penchant for cosmic caution was becoming a real test of patience. Ignoring astrological signs, Sarah and Ethan set their wedding date based on the availability of their favorite venue, a place that held special meaning for them. When the big day arrived, it was perfect. Sunny skies and mild temperatures set the scene, and all their friends and family were there, enjoying themselves. Even Agnes managed to crack a smile, though it seemed a bit strained. After the ceremony during the reception, Agnes pulled Sarah aside, her face serious, echoing their previous conversations. Sarah, I still think you should reconsider this union. You might be happy now, but what about when the stars shift? She warned. Sarah had reached her limit. Agnes, I'm married to your son now, and I'm not reconsidering anything. We're happy, and that's what matters. Her lips pursed slightly, and she scanned the room as if expecting celestial signs to intervene. You're ignoring the signs, Sarah, but remember, I warned you. Duly noted, Agnes. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to dance with my husband at our wedding, which, by the way, is going wonderfully, despite the bad signs, Sarah replied, turning away to join Ethan, who gave her a supportive thumbs up from across the room. They spent the rest of the evening dancing, laughing, and savoring every moment. Life as a newlywed had felt like a blissful dream, but as with all dreams, reality has a way of asserting itself. For Sarah, Agnes's relentless comments were that harsh reality. Every visit seemed to carry an air of disapproval, no matter the occasion. One Sunday afternoon at Agnes's house, Sarah hoped for a quiet gathering, but Agnes had other plans. So, Sarah, Agnes began, serving tea. Still no good news on the baby front? I read that some people are just cursed with bad energy. Sarah almost choked on her tea in surprise. Agnes, really? That's not how it works. We've seen Dr. Miller, everything's fine. These things take time. Or maybe it's just not meant to be. Agnes shrugged, sipping her tea nonchalantly as if she hadn't just said something outrageous. Sarah was seething, but Ethan's hand, gently squeezing hers under the table, silently urged her to stay calm. So, Sarah shifted the conversation. Actually, we've been house hunting. We found a great place and we're thinking about putting in an offer. Agnes raised an eyebrow. A house, huh? And how are you affording that? Ethan's doing well, but houses aren't cheap. Feeling proud of their hard work and financial independence, Sarah replied, Actually, I've been doing well with app development. We're contributing equally. Agnes scoffed, setting her tea down with unnecessary force. Well, isn't that convenient? Living off my son and now spending his money on a house? Her words stung. They left shortly after, with her cutting remarks lingering in the air, making Sarah feel as though nothing she did was ever enough to change Agnes's view of her. The process of buying their house, however, was a refreshing break from dealing with Agnes. They found a beautiful place that was perfect for them and moved in a few months later. Sarah hoped that owning their new home would prove to Agnes that she wasn't the gold digger she had been painted as, but instead, it seemed to only fuel Agnes's suspicions. At their housewarming, which Agnes attended more out of duty than desire, she pulled Sarah aside while Ethan mingled with other guests. Must be nice, living large on someone else's dime, Agnes said, a sly smile on her face. We both know the situation, don't we? Just make sure Ethan remains unaware of your secret little adventures, she whispered, her eyes darting around to ensure their conversation was private. Sarah was taken aback, a mix of shock and indignation on her face. What are you implying? I've never been unfaithful to Ethan, and I never will. How could you even accuse me of that? Agnes simply smirked and walked away, leaving Sarah simmering with anger. Later, word reached her through friends that Agnes was spreading rumors, calling her unfaithful and a parasite on Ethan. That was Sarah's breaking point. When she and Ethan were alone, she finally let it all out. Your mother is spreading horrible rumors about me, Ethan. I can't take it anymore. Ethan's anger mirrored hers. She did what? That's it. I'm going to talk to her. This has to stop. He confronted Agnes, giving her an ultimatum. Stop the accusations or she wouldn't be welcome in their home anymore. Agnes didn't take kindly to his warning. The next day, she called, furious. You're trying to separate me from my son, you witch. I know your game, bringing men over when Ethan isn't here. I'm not blind. Her words were meant to hurt, but Sarah had had enough. Believe whatever you want, Agnes, but if you continue spreading lies, you'll regret it. This is my home and I won't be intimidated here. After that, they limited her visits. For a while, peace returned, but Sarah knew it was just a temporary calm, the calm before the next storm. The unease began anew. One day at the supermarket, as Sarah loaded groceries into her car, a prickly sensation crept up her spine, the unsettling feeling of being watched. She scanned her surroundings and spotted a man at the edge of the parking lot, his gaze fixed on her. Although it felt odd, she dismissed it as paranoia. However, the feeling persisted. Days later, at a cafe near their home, the same man was there again, feigning interest in a newspaper, but clearly observing her. Her pulse quickened. Was she being followed? When she spotted him a third time standing across the street from their house, panic set in. This was no coincidence. He was tracking her. That evening, Sarah confided in Ethan. There's this man I keep seeing around and it feels like he's following me. Ethan was concerned but suggested a rational approach. Are you sure? Maybe you're just stressed. Why not take a few days off? Do some yoga, relax. Though skeptical, she agreed to try. Sarah resumed her yoga and meditation, hoping to ease her mind, but the sense of being watched persisted. Finally, unable to shake her suspicions, she returned to the supermarket. As predicted, he was there. Confronting him, she demanded answers, phone camera at the ready. Why are you following me? Who are you? He seemed startled and tried to leave, but Sarah was quicker, snapping pictures. "I've called the police," she lied, provoking a panicked response. "Wait, listen, I'm not here to harm you. I'm a private investigator, Vincent. I can't disclose more." Later, in their house parking lot, Ethan demanded the truth, physically restraining him. "Talk now, or I'm calling the cops." Under pressure, he confessed. "Look, I was hired by your mother. She wanted evidence of infidelity, but I swear, I found nothing. There's nothing to find," Ethan exclaimed as he dialed Agnes's number. "Mom, why on earth would you hire someone to follow Sarah? Don't show up at our house again. You're not welcome anymore." The next day, Ethan was a whirlwind of action, installing security cameras around their home. "With stunts like these, who knows what else she might try," he said, his words tinged with frustration. After the unsettling events with Agnes and the private investigator, Ethan proposed the perfect antidote: a vacation just for the two of them, away from the turmoil they found themselves in. They found a quaint beach town, surrounded only by the soothing sounds of waves and seagulls. It was the ideal retreat. For the first time in ages, Sarah relaxed under the sun with a book, free from prying eyes or hidden motives. When they returned home, she carried with her a newfound peace, which only deepened when she discovered something miraculous. She was pregnant. After years of trying and enduring Agnes's harshness, it had finally happened. But with the joy came a fierce protectiveness. Considering Agnes's recent behavior, the last thing Sarah wanted was to expose their newfound happiness to any risk. They chose to keep the pregnancy a secret, especially from Agnes. "Let's just share this with my parents, John and Linda, for now," Sarah suggested to Ethan, who was ecstatic about the news. "I don't want my mom's negativity ruining this." He agreed. "We'll announce it to everyone else when we're ready." Working from home made it easier to conceal her growing belly. Sarah switched to looser shirts and flowy dresses whenever she went out. Though there wasn't much to hide yet, she was past her first trimester, but surprisingly, there wasn't much of a bump. During a checkup, Sarah voiced her concerns to Dr. Miller, who reassured her with a smile. "Every woman's body is different, Sarah. As long as the baby is healthy and the scans are normal, there's no need to worry." As the weeks turned into months, the little life growing inside her remained a cherished secret, shared only with Ethan and her parents. They spent evenings in the future nursery, discussing and dreaming. "I think we should paint it yellow," Ethan suggested one evening, imagining the room bathed in a cheerful sunny hue. "Yellow's nice, bright and happy," Sarah agreed, envisioning their baby in their crib against a vibrant backdrop. This little bubble of joy was theirs to cherish, and for the time being, that was all that mattered. Although Agnes's shadow loomed at the edge of their joy, inside their home, within their growing family, they felt secure. 7 months into her pregnancy, with Sarah's belly now clearly visible, she and Ethan decided it was time to celebrate openly with family and friends, including Agnes. They hoped that by sharing the joy of their growing family, Agnes might finally let go of her grudge. They organized a big celebration at their home, decorating the backyard with twinkling lights and vibrant flowers. Sarah felt like royalty, moving gracefully among the guests with Ethan by her side. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and congratulations from everyone, except for Agnes, who showed up late with a stormy expression. Sarah braced herself, preparing for whatever Agnes might say or do. She had hoped that, on such a special occasion, Agnes might maintain some composure, but her optimism quickly faded. As Sarah mingled with the guests, Agnes's voice rang out over the crowd. "This is all an act," she declared loudly, catching the attention of a circle of relatives. "She's not really pregnant, it's just a scheme to trap Ethan and take all his money." Her cruel words stung, but Sarah was determined not to let them ruin the celebration. She calmly approached Agnes, smoothing the fabric of her dress, trying to keep her voice steady. "Agnes, can we talk for a moment?" Agnes sized her up with a skeptical glance. "What's there to talk about? You think you can fool everyone? but you can't fool me." Taking a deep breath to keep her composure, Sarah replied, "I am genuinely pregnant, Agnes. It's Ethan's baby, and it's real. Can we please put our differences aside, just for today, for the baby's sake?" Agnes let out a scornful laugh. "You're unbelievable. Do you really expect me to believe this whole charade?" Trying to avoid making a scene, Sarah persisted. "Agnes, please. This is a day for celebration. Let's just enjoy it." Agnes sneered dismissively and walked away, heading upstairs. Sarah hesitated for a moment, but then followed, fearing that Agnes might continue her hateful talk. Upstairs, Sarah found her standing there, visibly enraged. "Agnes, why can't you just be happy for us? In a month you'll see there's going to be a real baby," Sarah said, trying to reason with her. Agnes turned, her eyes icy and full of contempt. "There is no baby. You've always been a fraud, Cher." The words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut, and tears began to well in her eyes. "I don't understand why you're doing this, but it has to stop," Sarah said, turning to leave. But just as she started heading downstairs, a sudden shove from behind caught her off guard. She lost her balance and tumbled down the stairs, the room spinning as she plummeted. When Sarah regained consciousness, she was under the bright lights of a hospital room, surrounded by the beeping of monitors. The pain was overwhelming. Ethan was by her side, his face filled with worry. "Sarah, thank God you're awake. How do you feel?" Ethan's voice was urgent, his hand gripping hers tightly. Sarah's heart raced as she tried to focus. "Where's Owen?" she gasped, panic rising in her chest. Ethan's face tightened, his concern deepening. "They had to induce labor after your fall. He's on life support, but he's fighting hard," he explained softly, his voice trembling slightly. Tears filled Sarah's eyes as the weight of his words sank in. She struggled to speak through her sobs. "Is he going to be okay?" "They're doing everything they can," Ethan reassured her, wiping her tears away tenderly. But the memory of the fall lingered in her mind. The shove, the terrifying tumble, and Agnes's face just before she started her descent down the stairs. "Ethan," Sarah said, her voice trembling with both fear and determination. "Agnes pushed me. She did it." Ethan looked pained and confused, shaking his head. "No, Sarah. It must have been an accident." "It wasn't," Sarah insisted, her frustration mounting. "Please check the cameras." Ethan's expression softened, and with a heavy sigh he stood to leave, his heart clearly torn. After what felt like an eternity, he returned, his face pale and ashen. "I saw it," he said quietly, his voice barely a whisper. "You were right. The video confirms everything. My mom pushed you." Ethan's voice was strained as he dialed the police, his conversation a mix of anger and disbelief. Sarah could only catch fragments of the exchange, the tension palpable in the air. After he hung up, he explained that Agnes was being taken into custody. The following days were a blur of emotions. Owen, fragile and tiny, fought for his life in the neonatal intensive care unit, surrounded by the constant beeping of machines and the diligent care of nurses. Sarah spent every moment praying, her heart aching for the little life so vulnerable in that incubator. Agnes, meanwhile, faced charges. Her defense in court was almost laughable. She claimed that it was all a prank, a misguided attempt to expose what she believed was a lie about Sarah's pregnancy. "I didn't mean any harm," she protested, her voice almost pleading. "I just wanted everyone to see the truth." But the evidence was undeniable. The video clearly showed her actions. The judge found her guilty and sentenced her to 3 years in prison, ordering her to pay restitution. The sale of her house was mandated to cover the medical and rehabilitation costs for their son. As time went on, Owen grew stronger. The rehabilitation was difficult, full of countless appointments and therapies, but Owen proved resilient, slowly catching up with his peers. By his 2nd birthday, it was hard to believe that such a joyful, energetic child had faced such a rough start. Through it all, Ethan and Sarah's relationship only deepened, their bond solidified by the challenges they had faced together. As for Agnes, her actions had destroyed any chance of reconciliation. Sarah and Ethan both agreed that it was best for her to remain out of their lives and out of Owen's. It was a difficult decision, but one they knew was necessary for the safety and happiness of their family. Now, as Sarah watched Owen, healthy, joyful, and full of life, a wave of peace washed over her. It was as if, despite everything, the universe had finally shifted in their favor. The dark cloud that Agnes had cast over their lives had finally dissipated. What remained was a glowing path ahead, full of promise and hope for their small family's future.